Growing up, my parents were big baseball fans. When we lived in Baltimore, which is where we lived until I was 2, we had mini season tickets, which let us go see the Orioles and rookie sensation Cal Ripken Jr. every Sunday home game. And when my family moved back to the Boston area, I can remember seeing at least one Red Sox game just about every year. I might not be so much of a baseball fan these days, but I'm always willing to sit down and play Major League Baseball. I have vivid memories of my grandfather sitting down on the floor to learn how to play this cartridge, and my parents talking him through the difference between bunting and hitting. In fact, I can remember how difficult it was for me to get the timing for swinging the bat, and only bunting for a time, and maybe even bunting a home run. But I started playing this game when I was 3 or 4 years old, so my memory's only so good. But I do remember playing baseball by myself and hitting the different pitches on one controller while learning the timing on the other to connect the ball with the swinging bat. If only my dedication to real baseball was as strong as it was to Intellivision's Major League Baseball, then maybe I would have been better at the actual game. What makes baseball so special is that with the overlay controller, you can throw the ball to anyone you want. If the catcher has the ball and for whatever reason he wants to throw it to the left field, you can do it with just a single push of the left fielder button. I also love the artwork on this overlay. It reminds me of a series of baseball figurines that I used to play with at my grandparents' house. And it also brings me back to playing these old baseball arcade machines with my father that we used to play at Salem Willows, which is an old-timey arcade complete with lots of electromechanical pinball machines and even some Nickelodeons. This was also one of the first video games to feature synthesized voice. And although it was limited, this 1979 title featured an umpire who would yell or maybe even belch out whenever there was an out. According to the Intellivision Lives website, the story goes that it was technically possible to put in talking in other games like this. But marketing killed it in order to promote the upcoming IntelliVoice, which was a voice synthesizer peripheral for the Intellivision that I'm sure I will cover later. Anyway, this was also one of the games that was famous for being compared with Atari games, where it was shown next to Atari Home Run Baseball, where clearly the Intellivision beat it out with superior graphics, sounds, and most importantly, a baseball diamond with the correct number of players on the field. Not only that, but the discerning consumer would notice that this product was officially licensed by the Major League and wasn't just any run-of-the-mill backyard bootleg bumpkin baseball. As I began collecting Intellivision games as a teen in the late 90s, I discovered from Keith Robinson's website that there was an updated version of Major League Baseball called World Championship Baseball, released by INTV Corporation, which is the company that released Intellivision games after Mattel Electronics closed. This worthy update added a number of welcome features to the game, including a visual for fly balls, scrolling, and overrunning and sliding into bases. And just like real baseball, if you want to slide across the entire field, you can! But best of all, this version of baseball added a single-player option. When I was in high school, I used to try to get my younger brother to play Intellivision games with me, but that was usually pretty fruitless. He was more into N64 or PlayStation, which makes sense as he is about 3 years younger than me. He wasn't really exposed to Intellivision at a young age, and he really got his start on the NES. Anyway, I can remember that one day he came into my room and asked me if I wanted to play Intellivision with him. I didn't question it at all. Instead, I immediately fired up World Championship Baseball, and we played for a while. What I didn't know is that my parents had invited a bunch of my friends over to our house for a surprise 16th birthday party for me, and my brother was part of the ruse to make sure that they could sneak everybody in. And I sure was surprised, especially since my birthday had been 6 months earlier. Which I guess in hindsight is a good way to surprise somebody. So, between my memories of my grandfather playing and that surprise party, I'll always remember this game fondly, even if it has been hard for me to find people to play this one with. The AI on World Championship Baseball kind of runs the gambit between too easy and brutal with its 4 levels of difficulty, but when I break out my Intellivision, I'll still play this cart, although I haven't played the original since finding World Championship over 20 years ago now. And although the single-player version can be fun for a challenge, there's nothing like going head-to-head with someone else on this one. If you are starting an Intellivision collection, in my opinion, either game is a must-have, and Major League Baseball is one of the most common cartridges to find, with over 1 million produced. One thing that I found fascinating on the history of this game is it is actually the first Intellivision game ever programmed. The Intellivisionaries podcast did an interview with the programmer, David Rolfe, who was designing the operating system for the Intellivision. While designing the operating system, he needed a game to test it out and programmed what would later become Major League Baseball. I'll put a link to that podcast in the show's description. Now, I'd love to hear your memories of either Major League Baseball or World Championship Baseball in the comments. Was this a game you liked playing with friends or siblings? Or were you like me and did you have trouble finding someone to play this one with? And if you've never played them, they're definitely worth checking out, especially if you can find someone else who's never played the game to try it out with you. If you enjoyed this video and our stroll down memory lane, please give it a like and consider subscribing so you can stay up to date on the next games that I cover. Thanks, and see you next time.